Well, as you heard, we are starting. Good afternoon. A very warm welcome to APSA's Inaugural Master Series 2024. Today's event is co-hosted by the Asia Pacific Structured Finance Association, or APSA, formed to promote the growth and development of structured finance in the region, and the Asian Academy of International Law, which dedicates itself to furthering the studies, research, and development of international law in Hong Kong and beyond. Today's event is made possible by our co-sponsors, China Construction Bank Asia, and the Master of Science in Financial Engineering program jointly run by the Chinese University of Hong Kong and the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen. My name is Kaisen Ho, an Executive Committee member for APSA and your MC for today. Today's program features a keynote speech by Mr. Leung, Vice Chairperson of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference and former Chief Executive of the HKSAR. That will be followed by a fireside chat with Mr. Leung, which will be hosted by Dr. Anthony Neoh, Senior Advisor to APSA and Co-Chairman of AAIL. At the end of the program, we will have a Q&A session where you could put your questions to our distinguished speakers. But first, may I invite Ms. Susie Chung, co-convener of APSA, to deliver the welcoming remarks and introduce some of the recent work that APSA has been doing as an industry association. Susie, please.
Thank you, Kaisen. Good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. It's really, really nice to see all of you here. And thank you so very much for making time to join us on this very important occasion as we're going to discuss a topic of great importance to the community in Hong Kong. So let me begin by saying it is with great pleasure that I stand before you today to introduce this prestigious event co-hosted by Asia Pacific Structured Finance Association, APSA in short, and the Asian Academy of International Law, AAIL, on a timely topic titled Hong Kong's Untapped Potential as a Global Financial Center, a keynote event under APSA's Inaugural Master Series 2024. Although Hong Kong has consistently ranked amongst the top global financial centers for the past several decades since 1970, it is noted that Hong Kong's economy has faced headwinds in recent years, contributed by factors such as the trade tensions between the US and mainland China, COVID-19 pandemic, political unrest in Hong Kong in recent times, structural changes in Hong Kong due to the economy's over-reliance on financial services, trade and real estate sectors, etc. However, it is noted that Hong Kong has since then taken on board various strategies to reinvigorate its economy by undergoing an economic transformation to adapt to the changing economic landscape, and is tapping into the emerging opportunities, such as, for example, nurturing startups and incubation programs, positioning itself as a fintech hub in areas such as digital payments, blockchain, and insurtech, promoting creative industries such as films, design, fashion, and entertainment to attract international events and exhibitions. Also transforming Hong Kong's financial services by promoting initiatives such as virtual banking, open banking, and wealth tech to advance the competitiveness and efficiency of Hong Kong's financial industry. Now, from the examples of the measures highlighted above, it would appear that various new initiatives and strategies have been undertaken by the Hong Kong government to reinvigorate Hong Kong's economy and endeavor to maintain Hong Kong's competitiveness in the region. The question is, are such initiatives undertaken by the Hong Kong government adequate to turn around the headwinds faced by Hong Kong in recent years? And will Hong Kong be able to adapt and evolve as it seeks to overcome these challenges by tapping into its untapped potential? To enable us to gain a better appreciation of the current dynamics and tensions that Hong Kong is now facing, we are very fortunate to have with us today two distinguished speakers who would help us gain a better insight into the above issues. Allow me to introduce the keynote speaker, Mr. Leung, who indeed needs little introduction since Mr. C.Y. Leung currently serves as a vice chairperson of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference and previously held the position of chief executive of the Hong Kong SAR region. With his extensive experience and deep understanding of Hong Kong's financial landscape, Mr. Leung is well qualified to provide valuable insights into the untapped potential that Hong Kong uniquely possesses and which is awaiting to be explored and uncovered. In addition to Mr. C.Y. Leung, we are honored to have Dr. Anthony Neoh, Senior Counsel, JP, Senior Advisor to APSA and Co-Chairman of AAIL, moderating a fireside chat. Dr. Neoh brings extensive expertise in the financial industry, and he will engage in an insightful conversation with Mr. Leung, offering further perspectives, anecdotes, as Tony is always famous for, and invaluable insights that will enrich our understanding of Hong Kong's financial future and the challenges that will need to be overcome if Hong Kong strives to maintain its role as an IFC. So now, may I turn to a little bit about APSA. APSA is a leading professional organization dedicated to promoting and advancing structured finance in the Asia-Pacific region. APSA also acts as a catalyst for innovation, collaboration, and growth within the financial sector. In this respect, it gives me great pleasure to highlight APSA's ongoing efforts in promoting the cross-border securitization initiative between mainland China and Hong Kong over the past several years. With mainland China being the second largest structured finance in the market, the structured finance market after the US, with an annual issuance average US $355 billion per year for the past 5 years. APSA considers and advocates promoting mainland securitization market by offering asset-backed securities originated in mainland to global investors via Hong Kong's Bond Connect. Owing to regulatory constraints, the mainland securitization market, despite being the second largest in the world, remains largely a domestic market. It is considered that once the regulatory constraints are resolved, this will enable the mainland asset-backed securities to be listed on the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong, a feat which is probably not dissimilar to the listing of Qingdao Beer on the HKEX back in 1993. So we are pleased to share with you that APSA's initiative has received some indicative support from the stakeholders, including the regulators, both in mainland China and the HKSAR government. And we hope to pave the way for the building of the mainland securitization financing platform by adopting a pilot transaction with asset-backed securities collateralized by green assets originated in mainland China. Soon. I will now wish to close my welcome remarks by expressing, on behalf of APSA and AAIL, our most sincere gratitude to the distinguished speakers, our esteemed sponsors, our selfless supporting organizations, and our venue provider, each of whom has played a crucial role in making this event a reality today. Thank you so very, very much. We are grateful. So now let us embark on this enlightening journey together as we explore the untapped potential of Hong Kong's financial sector and pave the way for a brighter future for Hong Kong as a global financial center in the years ahead. On that note, thank you so very much. I hand over the mic to Kaisen. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. As Susie mentioned, the world around us is changing rapidly every day. How could Hong Kong further evolve and grow as a growing financial center? To address this really important question for Hong Kong and for all of us, would you please join me in welcoming Mr. C.Y. Leung on stage for his keynote address?
Tony, Susie, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The financial services sector is the biggest contributor to Hong Kong's GDP. It's about 5 times, maybe a bit more, than that of the tourism sector, which is getting a lot of attention. I'll repeat again, it's 5 times and a bit more than the contribution that the tourism sector makes to Hong Kong's GDP. The financial services sector is also the sector that contributes the highest GDP per capita and has the highest level of education attainment amongst its employees. So all these are pointing for us to the right direction. And in terms of contributing to our future GDP growth, and we need to have higher GDP growth rates and higher GDP per capita to give Hong Kong people, particularly our young generation, better hope for the future. In terms of future GDP growth, the financial services sector is also the sector that offers the best potential. That's why we're here today. Now, there are many subsectors in the financial services sector that Hong Kong is uniquely placed to grow and excel. As we all know, this sector is not just about IPOs. It's not just about the stock market or commercial banking. It's much bigger than people generally think, and there are many, many subsectors within the financial services sector. We only have to look at London, New York, or even Chicago, Tokyo, or even Osaka to give us some indications as to what else we can do. 32 years ago, 1 year before Qingdao Beer was listed in Hong Kong, 90 Hong Kong delegates, 105 delegates from Taiwan, 72 from the mainland, gathered in the Portman Hotel in Shanghai. The subject, listing of mainland Chinese enterprises outside of the mainland. We were there, and KPMG fielded Ho Zhang, Aloysius Jie, so on. I was there too. This is a copy of the original folder. I kept the folder because I felt that something was happening. It was history in the making. Looking back, I wasn't wrong. It was history in the making. You can see all these names and speeches. And in English, it says Symposium on Securities Market, Shanghai, 1992. The Chinese title actually was a bit more accurate. 海峡两岸, meaning cross-strait, 和香港 and Hong Kong. So cross-strait and Hong Kong. 证券交易 Securities Transaction 与管理 and Management Symposium. So that was that. The original is not in my possession now because the China Museum of Securities, which is a state organ, which was formed a few years ago, got wind of it and asked for the original folder. So it's now one of the exhibits in this grand old ladies and old building, vintage building on the Bund in Shanghai. Before I gave them the original, I managed to make a photocopy, and this is a photocopy of photocopy. As I said, we fielded 90 Hong Kong delegates, myself included, and gave speeches and so on. We couldn't even speak Putonghua. And we had to use interpreters to turn our Cantonese speeches into Putonghua. And that was a big disadvantage, particularly with our Taiwanese friends, competitors in the audience. And the Assistant Minister of Finance, Mr. Zhang Youchai, in his opening remarks, said something like, amongst the three places, meaning mainland Taiwan and Shanghai, Taiwan stock market had the biggest market cap and turnover amongst the four little dragons. It was only 32 years ago. Taiwan had the biggest market cap and turnover amongst the four little dragons. And so the Hong Kong delegates went away feeling not very optimistic about Hong Kong trying to get a share of mainland enterprises listing in Hong Kong. And we all say Taiwan would win hands down. Now, as you all know, the rest was history. And this was the year before Qingdao came to Hong Kong. When Qingdao came to Hong Kong in the following year, it really experimented by tapping the small pool of funds in Hong Kong, local money. And as we all know, as time passed by, and Hong Kong being such a successful market for mainland enterprises, we had juggernauts, such as the ICBC, the biggest bank in the world, coming to Hong Kong to tap Hong Kong's funds. But then Hong Kong had turned itself into not just a pool, but from the pool, we became a huge viaduct, a conduit, drawing international funds from the oceans and gave them to juggernauts such as ICBC. Now, we wouldn't have the size and the sway of Hong Kong X if we didn't become the largest market for mainland shares outside the mainland. So they were, when we started, and they are still our biggest customer. That's something we should bear in mind. The lesson I draw from this experience, a 32-year journey, is that one, we always have competition. Two, we always have amongst ourselves detractors and pessimists. Three, we are more competitive than we sometimes think. Fourthly, the mainland market is our biggest forte. And now we speak Putonghua. Lastly, once we are on the right track, the mainland market can expand very quickly. So we need to make the first move and use our first mover advantage. So that's one experience in Shanghai 32 years ago. around the same time, I had another experience, and that's in Beijing. Mr. Charles Li, Li Yeguang, led a delegation of people, including, I'm sure, accountants and KPMG accountants, or professionals, to go to Beijing to present to the heads of mainland Chinese enterprises who had expressed an interest to come to Hong Kong to list their shares. No one had at that time. And I had good fortune of speaking at an after lunch graveyard session. I don't know whether it was my voice or the contents of my presentation or whatever. Half of my audience were sleeping. They weren't interested. They would realize that in a matter of years, Hong Kong would become their biggest source of equity funding. Again, things could happen very quickly. Then in the year 2012, if we fast forward, I became Chief Executive Designate. I won the election. And the first thing I did before I was appointed by the Central People's Government was to announce that, true to my pledge in the election manifesto, I would form the Financial Services Development Council. I believe that we need breaks for the regulatory bodies, which were in existence and very powerful and doing the job rightly. But at the same time, we need accelerators in the vehicle that's called Hong Kong Financial Services Sector. And so I believe that we should have an organ that's charged with the duty of developing Hong Kong's financial services sector, not just an organ that regulates it. And I appointed Mrs. Laura Cha to be its chairman. I had one problem. The political climate at that time would not allow me to table a motion with the Legislative Council to turn this into a statutory body and to give it enough funding to do its work. So I had to beg, I had to steal, I had to borrow resources. And I parked Laura and her very small team on a shoestring budget in some government offices and had to operate below the radar screen, just in case my political enemy got wind of it. Now, something like the FSDC shouldn't be that political, should it? But the Science and Technology Bureau wasn't political. I wanted Hong Kong government to have a Science and Technology Bureau, which we now have, to foster the development of that sector. But my opponents in LegCo filibustered and they killed the motion twice. Until about 2.5 years later, I managed, by a stroke of luck, to have it established. Similarly, the Culture Bureau was killed. We still don't have a Cultural Bureau now. We have a culture in as one of the three parts of a new bureau. But anyway, those were the days. The key word in FSDC is development. We need development. We obviously need to consolidate the financial services sector. We don't want to lose it, but at the same time, we need to add to it. As I said, if we compare what we are doing to what other global financial centers do, we have some blanks and we need to develop. And as the country has been saying, 发展是硬道理，发展係硬道理。Development is the way to go. So FSDC came into being in a very small way in 2012. But thanks to Laura and all the members of the FSDC. And before I met them, I didn't realize that people could make a living by doing those occupations, and didn't realize that such experts exist, or such businesses exist. And in the 5 years when the chief executive, they produced a large number of very useful reports. So Untapped Potential, I sincerely recommend these reports to our friends in the audience today. Look up the FSDC reports. I have something to say about the FSDC in my wrap-up later. Now, since I finished my term as a chief executive of Hong Kong, I've been spending a lot of time outside of Hong Kong, to the extent that I'm only in Hong Kong physically over weekends to report to my family. I've been running around in different parts of the country and different parts of the world, Southeast Asia, Middle East, Africa, Central America, for different purposes. So based on my experience of running around and talking to people and listening to what they have to say about Hong Kong, I believe that Hong Kong in this sector has unique advantages. And these unique advantages are exactly the advantages that the central authorities want Hong Kong to bring to bear in the high quality development of the country. And the Chinese got 发挥独特作用, unique advantages. Now, where do we find these subsectors in our financial services sector where we have a future? Simply put, is everything and anything that the country needs and that Hong Kong is capable of doing better than any other Chinese city can do. What the country needs and what Hong Kong is good at, and where Hong Kong has a comparative advantage over other Chinese cities, be they Taipei, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, or Beijing. Now, we are obviously, in the true sense of the word, the global financial center of China. Examples: aircraft leasing, which I started as chief executive. And we just talked about it before we came in. The financing of commercial space activities. I don't know whether you know, there's literally a rocket factory in Nansha. And the high-speed train station in Nansha is only 45 minutes from West Kowloon. If you want to drive to this rocket factory, it's about 2 hours from where we are. And it's making the 4th factory, so the 4th rocket now since the factory opened. And it produces the 2nd most powerful solid fuel rocket in the world. And this business is a joint venture between a government unit and private enterprise. I was there about a month ago. I've been there taking friends to visit a few times, and the head of the factory and I were talking about using Hong Kong's financial and professional services help the space industry in China to get businesses from satellite companies. And we have space law experts in Hong Kong. I was talking to Hong Kong University yesterday, and a name came up, and he's a law professor in space law. So that's aircraft and space business, ship leasing, shipping finance, shipping insurance. These are very good potentials within the larger financial services sector. So much so that a few friends and I got together and we founded the Hong Kong International Shipping and Maritime Services Center, 香港国际航运与海事服务中心. You know, in the country's 14th five-year plan, Hong Kong doesn't have its own five-year plan, but for several five-year plans now, the central authorities would mention in the country's five-year plan what Hong Kong should do or what the country would support Hong Kong to do. And there's one sentence, I'm translating this in my head now, to support Hong Kong, elevate its position as an international finance, trade, and transportation center. The five-year plan before this, and this is the 13th five-year plan, actually had an additional word that's called consolidate, to support Hong Kong, consolidate, and elevate its position as an international blah, blah, blah. In the current five-year plan, which is 14th one, they took away the word consolidate and they just used the word elevate. So we need to elevate. What is elevation? Elevation is not expansion. Giving the Kwai Chung terminal more berths and moving more boxes around is not elevation. That's expansion. Elevation means that we do something like what London is good at. Services, office-based, desk-based, high value-added activities compared to shore-based, low value-added activities at the container terminals. I often say that if a lorry driver at our container terminal retires and pass the lorry down to his son or daughter, why not, to become another generation of lorry driver, there's no progress in the family. If all lorry driver families in Hong Kong do that, then there's no progress for Hong Kong. On the other hand, if the lorry driver, by the time he retires, his son or daughter becomes a shipping finance expert, a shipping insurance expert, or maritime law expert, then that company, that family has made good progress. And if all lorry driver families do that, then perhaps we should give the business of moving boxes around to Nansha. And that's elevation. And that's progress. And therefore, I've been talking to the law schools and business schools in Hong Kong University and try to sort of get the supply side and demand sides together. So that's one area. Trade finance. Our trade volume is huge. Our total trade volume is about 3 times our GDP. Some people think that is theoretically not possible, but it is. We are a very significant trade hub of China. We don't produce anything, but we sell a lot of things for other people, for third parties. We don't consume a lot because we're a small society, but we buy a lot for other parties. When goods flow, you need finance to go with them. And so we do a lot of trade finance, but not enough. China is becoming a huge trading nation in the world, as we all know. And our trade finance, Hong Kong-based trade finance, should go with these goods that we produce and sell to all corners of the world now. I was in Mexico not long ago, and the amount of goods that are made in Mexico but made by China is just huge. Now, how do we do it? And how do we tap the untapped potential of Hong Kong as a global financial services center? Firstly, government should legislate and turn the Financial Services Development Council into a statutory body and grow it as quickly as we can into another Trade Development Council. And the FSDC should have full-time officers in the mainland of China and in different parts of the world. I think TDC has something like 50 such officers. Secondly, everyone that has a stake and duty in growing the Hong Kong financial services sector should have a permanent and proactive office in Beijing and other commercial cities on the mainland for the purpose of information gathering, lobbying, and promotion. Thirdly, we should entice mainland enterprises, including SOEs, to come and set up their second-tier or third-tier subsidiaries in Hong Kong as go-out regional offices. Lastly, the last point I want to make is that time is of the essence because we have competitors out there. We need to be bolder and faster at this great game of diversifying and growing our financial services sector. Time to market for our new products has to be shorter. Political conditions now are much more amenable than the days when the FSDC was founded in 2012. So let's press a button and go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leung, for your keynote address. Now we are going to go on to the fireside chat. So may I invite Dr. Anthony Neoh together with Mr. Leung on stage for the fireside chat, please.
First of all, CY, that was a
Give a speech too.
I'm not going to give a speech. We're going to have a chat. This is a fireside chat, but no fire so far. But that was a great speech. And, what I liked about the speech, let me tell you this, is this tremendous sense of history. And a sense that there are many moments in history where Hong Kong can actually get out of its traditional mode and go on to a new mindset. I think that is the real message that I come out from this. This is what I got from the speech. See why? Yeah. Now, and talking about history, you know that I was involved in the H-shares, as you were. And now I was there in 1992 in the People's Hall of Jurong. That was about, I think about February 1992. But you had your meeting in Shanghai 1 year before, so it's 1991. So at that time, Jurong is about to move to central government. Was he still at that time, still the party secretary at the time in Shanghai when you went for your meeting? He probably was, wasn't it? I tell you why it was. I finally connected the dots on this one. Okay, because after this meeting in Shanghai, I know that Hong Kong people came back and was a little bit downhearted at the time. But the Hong Kong Stock Exchange at that time was Charles Lee, who was the chairman of Hong Kong Stock. I don't know whether Charles was there with you at the time. Probably not at that time at the meeting. Was Charles with you?
Not at the meeting, but at the presentation.
Not a meeting, yeah. But Charles came back and then he said, we had this and we heard about the meeting in Shanghai and we're going to have to start thinking about, listing Chinese shares in Hong Kong. And he got a consultant to produce a great big report. And the report is still there, it's in the archives. It's a great big report. But it was a report which was very Western in orientation. Namely that, in all the markets in the world, you need to have a good company law, you need to have good securities law, and you have the good courts and so on and so forth. And therefore, before you can have that, you cannot list your shares. So Charles made the mistake of giving this report to Jurong at that time. And then this was circulated to all the government departments, including Chaizenbo and all the various departments. And then it got a very negative reaction because they then said that, well, we know all this, but if you want us to do this, wait 20 years. So that was what happened at the time. And when so Charles, we had this meeting half an hour before we went to see Jurong at that time. He was already in central government. He was the vice premier. He was also the governor of the People's Bank at the time. I don't know if you remember that, yeah. And then Charles then came up when we had 6 people in the meeting, and he said that, we got a really negative reaction from the government departments. What are we going to tell Jurongji? He's going to give us a big scolding. So we discussed it. He said, well, the only thing we can do is to have a new mindset and to really see what we can construct from what is present in China at the time. Now, by that time, China in 1992, it's already built up some law. It already had some, because 1992 it already has the contract law. It also have the civil, the general principles of civil law. So enough to construct something, at the time. But then, the report says, we want a lot more. So we said, why don't we do this? Let us try and study this and give us time for study group at the time so that we could find a solution. So Charles thought, oh, that's a good idea. So we walked into the People's Hall. Jurongji was there. He was rather straight-faced at the moment. The first thing he said to Charles, said, 你是不是开玩笑啊，跟我? So that's what he said. You joking. He was saying that, and then Charles said, no. He said, no. We understand this. So let us study this. Let us study this, and let us have a working group for 6 months. If we can't make it, we can't make it. But let's study this, so that we make it work. So they decided to have a working group. Now, and that working group then produced, in fact, the system for the X-share. Now that system is still with today. Now this is actually what I think, the X-share moment, I call this, and the new mindset. I know you see what I mean. You went to China very early days. And the land administration system in China was very much imported from some of the ideas from Hong Kong. When you led a group of professionals to do that. So again, the contribution of Hong Kong is very, very palpable and very tangible from that. Now the question for us today, and Siwa is very, very right to say that that we have to have this X-share moment. So I'd like to explore with you, CY. Now, the X-share moment that we have today. Now, you did mention that there are many subsectors that we do, but I like your definition of a subsector, which is anything Hong Kong can do better than any other city. That is the definition, yeah? And which is why you then nominated a number of subsectors where you think we can do better, yeah? Now, I'd like to just raise with you, CY. Now, you talk about aircraft leasing. Just now, of course, we do have an aircraft register in Hong Kong, like shipping register. But the situation is that Ireland has got the aircraft leasing business. Singapore has got we haven't got at the moment. Even Bank of China, actually, somebody here from Bank of China, there are aircraft leasing companies in Singapore, actually. And the ICBC aircraft leasing company is in Ireland, actually. and the question is, now why don't they come to Hong Kong? And one of the issues that we have encountered so far is that the regulators in Hong Kong are very advanced in their thinking. But then the rest of the government isn't so. So we have problems, for example, with the Inland Revenue Department, who says that, if you have all of these new SPCs and so on and so forth, then we're going to lose revenue. So how do we get around this? Because we don't get around this, it's very, very hard to innovate. What is your view on this?
It is a very good example. To illustrate upon it, just made when I was on my feet. We need more people running around in Beijing, knocking on the doors of one government department after another to sell Hong Kong. We have not been doing that enough. We need to do a lot more promotion and marketing, and we do it in an organized way. I have this experience of running around with Susie in Beijing. Asset securitization, rather like the situation prior, the listing of Qingdao in Hong Kong. The country already had, or the mainland already had their own stock market, but they didn't have Hong Kong to give them the foreign exchange investment. Now they have securitization market in the mainland, but they have not used Hong Kong as a platform to sell their securitized assets or debts and to draw in the foreign funds. Now, Susie and I have this experience of coming up against one red light after another, or flashing amber light, and then we try to turn one red light into amber and amber into green, and then you line up all the green lights, then bingo, you have a new product. Now that's experience. Not meant to be easy. It's not easy, not meant to be easy for us, and not meant to be easy for our competitors. In the field of aircraft leasing, Ireland and Singapore, they're the business of ICBC or Bank of China. They come up against the same kind of challenges too. But I think we're well placed to overcome some of these obstacles. But we need a team much bigger and better than CY Leung plus Susie and other friends who do it, let's be frank, on a part-time basis. We need a real experts and properly incentivized with a clear mandate to run around on the mainland. Now, let me highlight this too. I know I upset my friends when I say that the Hong Kong professional bodies, and I use the term professional, sort of loose sort of way. So there's not just the accountants and lawyers and medical doctors are professionals. And the chambers of commerce, the professional bodies and the chambers of commerce in Hong Kong are not doing enough on the mainland. Our chambers of commerce and professional bodies actually are very well resourced. But where are they on the mainland? Do they have branches in Shanghai? Do they have branches in Beijing? No. We have Hong Kong business associations in the major cities on the mainland. Why? Because there was a gap to be filled. Because the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce, the Hong Kong Chinese General Chamber of Commerce, the Hong Kong Imports and Exports Association, they are not on the mainland. Now, similarly, if somehow someone could put enough resources into a body, I mean, we don't have the FSDC yet, otherwise FSDC should be doing this. If there's a trade association out there, a professional body out there who can do the kind of work that you just mentioned, sitting in Beijing, then it will be much more effective and quicker.
I think that must be right. The other thing though is this, that maybe we both might be upsetting our friends in the Hong Kong government. If I were to say this, is it still on aircraft leasing? Okay, the reason why aircraft leasing has actually somehow been attracted by Ireland and in Singapore is that they have, of course, provided tax regime which is very, very attractive to these companies. Ireland at the moment is finding it a little bit difficult because of the EU. The EU is now attacking them at the moment, so they might be. So we might have an opportunity in Hong Kong, but there is somehow a reluctance within the administration actually to really open up their minds and take a little bit of risk, because there's a little bit of risk on this, on that. But Singapore has been willing to do it. Right? Why do you think we're so reluctant to do things like Singapore has done very quickly and so on and so forth? When you were the CE at the time, and I've never, I left the civil service in 1989, so I don't know that.
Civil servants. We have civil servants in Hong Kong. We have civil servants in other governments too. And civil servants are civil servants. They're risk averse. They don't really want to try to handle new things just in case. That kind of mindset. But I think, honestly, I think the industry needs to compete for the attention of these civil servants. They have piles of files to go through and dozens of emails to reply to. But I think we need to compete for the attention, the potential there, but we are not lobbying enough. I mean, if we go to, as you know, you go to Washington, D.C., you read the office directory in all these glitzy new office buildings. What do? Lobbyists.
Yes, quite right, quite right.
We don't have enough lobbyists in Hong Kong government and in Beijing. We need big banks writing checks, and let's form a new organization to grow Hong Kong's financial services sector.
Because that is going to be very important, the change of the mindset to go in with new trends and to take a little bit of risk. You just mentioned, for example, a number of subsectors. The space subsector is so new, right? But it is so exciting at the moment. Now, you met this professor in Hong Kong. I know him as Professor Zhao Yun. Yeah. And he actually is also one of the advisory members of the AIL, which I'm the co-chair with Teresa. Now, on space, because there's a tremendous amount of international law in that which is still unexplored territory. And therefore, many countries are now trying to grab basically a space in that legal territory. The US, for example, has enacted lots of laws, domestic laws, which says that they can actually grab any asteroid they want, and they can actually mine in the moon, they can mine in Mars, and so on and so forth. And the important thing is that they allow, in fact, the private sector to involve. Recently, one of the private sector companies landed something on the moon. It didn't go very well, but they landed on the moon, right? Sooner or later, they'll do it better. Yeah. Now, the thing, therefore, for us is this ability to innovate. Because as far as Professor Zhao Yun told me, I don't know whether he told you, that really there's a tremendous opportunity to develop, in fact, commercial opportunities and vehicles, in fact, financial vehicles for financing insurance, reinsurance, also financing satellite communications and so on, tremendous amount of work. But the basic issue is if they come through Hong Kong, we have the regulatory structure, very good. And the regulators are very, very advanced. They are very forward thinking. Both the HKMA, the insurance, the SFC, very forward thinking people. I think what we need is within the administration, particularly the finance part, is to be very open-minded on this one. So I think all of us need to work on that. Yeah. The other thing I thought I might raise with you, CY, is the you were very right to say that we need to change the mindset and we need to really think ahead right now. Now, one of the problems that, of course, right now that we see are the geopolitical problems we see. The US, led by the US, at the moment, they think that, China somehow is not abiding by the so-called rule-based international order. This is what they say. And therefore, and then there are countries which follow them, like Britain particularly follow them. And the Europe, some countries, but not every country, they tend to follow them. And therefore, we have seen, in fact, a withdrawal of capital coming to Hong Kong. We have also seen in the professional services side, for example, I don't know whether it's happening in the accounting firms, in the major international law firms. This is happening at the moment. I mean, the colleague upstairs, Mayor Brown, they just announced, in fact, that they're going to split from the US people. And there will be other law firms which are going to do that. So this is part of the political pressures in here. Now, from your position, very high position as the vice chair of the political committee, now how can Hong Kong and the country, what attitude should we take as to that?
What I'm going to say has been attributed to Ho Chi Minh of Vietnam. He said, in the Chinese term, 危机, crisis, there are two Chinese words. One is 危, danger. The other is 机, meaning opportunity. So the two come hand in hand. The geopolitical situation causes some challenges to China as a whole, and that includes Hong Kong. And that's true. But at the same time, we could see opportunities too. For example, going back to what you said, the Chinese aircraft leasing business going to Singapore, going to Ireland. If I was in Beijing, I probably need to think about the possibility of not putting all the Chinese aircraft leasing eggs in these two foreign baskets. And if you have to sort of de-risk, spread the risk, and put your eggs in other baskets, including the national Chinese basket, then Hong Kong is a very good candidate. So that's an opportunity for us. So I see many other similar examples. We should talk about legal services. The question has come to the minds of many of my friends in the mainland of China. To what extent can you trust foreign law firms? Handing over all your files to them when you have international trade or shipping and other disputes to resolve. So if I was a lawyer in Hong Kong, if I own a law firm in Hong Kong, I would definitely go for these state-owned enterprises and offer them my services in maritime law and international trade law, etc. Because national security has become an issue in the minds of many in mainland China.
In that case, let's explore this a little bit further on this, because I don't disagree with what you're saying. No, but let's explore this further. If you look at the geopolitical problems that we're facing at the moment, the problem comes from about 7 to 8 countries at the moment, called the G7, you might say. And the G7 has less than 1 billion population in the world. Everybody then you go to Africa, you go to Central America, and so on and so forth. We call this the G77. It's the global south. They are the G77. And they, of course, have over 3 billion population. But the problem, of course, is the G7 owns more wealth than all of them put together. And therefore, they're still the sort of rich people at the moment. Now, what attitude should we take then in terms of that situation? I mean, what is our best strategy for the China and for Hong Kong? We cannot stop doing business with the G7. Of course not, right? But we do what we can at the moment. Even Mr. Blinken, he came to see President Xi. He was not kicked out. You know, he was welcomed in a sense, right? But what more can we do with all these countries like Central America, Africa, Middle East, and so on?
I really take my hat off to Chinese business people. They're very versatile, very quick off the feet, very adaptive. On the 11th of May, the Southern China airline, Nanhang, will inaugurate a flight from Shenzhen to Mexico City. It's a 16-hour flight, direct. Before that, you have to fly from Hong Kong to somewhere in the States and then fly to Mexico or transfer in Tokyo. Why is Southern Airlines operating this flight? Because industrialists from Guangdong are flying to Mexico. Why are they flying to Mexico? Because they're making products in Mexico. So world trade, whether it's G7 or G77, I don't think it's simply a matter of reading the label on a piece of goods. More and more of these made in Mexico goods, and that's caught the attention of the American government too, so this is no secret, are actually made by China in Mexico, and you have a different label. And I think China will remain a major manufacturing force in the world. Prices are very competitive. and they are determined to create, and that's where Hong Kong can help too, have their own brands. If you read the, I'm digressing, but I think this is relevant. If you read the first of the 10 tasks that the Premier tasked the country to do in her report on the 7th of March at the two sessions, Leung. So 2024, 10 tasks, 10大任務. The first one contains a paragraph that says, forge, I'm translating now, forge Chinese brands that have international following. And that's what the country is doing too. Once you have that, I think the export market will become more lucrative and bigger. I mean, if you look at the present situation, this may not have direct bearing on the Hong Kong financial services sector, but definitely on Hong Kong trade and related sectors. China is a huge tea producing country. 40% of teas in the world are produced by China. But China doesn't as yet have a national tea brand, let alone a global tea brand. And this is one mission that we have. It may take 10 years, 15 years for China to have its own national or global tea brand. Now, all these things are things that Hong Kong can do to help. And these trades going through China, teas coming into, or Chinese teas going out, Kenyan teas going into China, so on and so forth. Hong Kong has a part to play.
So essentially, we do have, in fact, vast market, both internally and externally, including all of these G77 countries that you've been to, which brings us to really the next question is, how can we help? And this is what you say, is that our strength is in services. That's how you concluded your speech just now. Now, you also alluded to London in your speech. Now, of course, London, unfortunately, has gone into Brexit. And as a result, in fact, a lot of the talent prior to Brexit actually left. And hopefully, you know, they're gaining some of that back, but not as much as before. Hong Kong, in the midst of the COVID-19 and also the disturbances that you have in Hong Kong, some talent has actually moved out. Some have moved, some have moved east. Some have come back, but not a great deal. So when we say we want to develop our services, what do you think are the directions that we should go to right now? I have some ideas, but I'd like to hear your ideas.
We are a society of 7.4 million people. We don't have all the resources that we need to serve the world. So we need to be selective. We play the cards that we have in our hands. Whether it's immigration, we have 7.4 million people with the attributes that they now have. And we need to redeploy some of our resources, including the talent in our financial services sector, from subsectors that are low value added to subsectors that are high value added. That's the only way to go. In the past 30 years, the Hong Kong people's education attainment level has gone up. The world has changed, and therefore we need to transform ourselves. So that's a general comment as to how we could do this. The housing situation could become easier, which used to be a major stumbling block when we want to attract expatriates. The work that I put in and my successors put in the last 10 plus years are beginning to have effect on the supply side. So other things being equal, I don't expect to see the kind of jumps in rents and prices in the Hong Kong housing market. And that would be easier for employers to bring in expats. How can Hong Kong help? We really need to understand ourselves a bit more. We need to be in our target markets a bit more. Not everyone has the luxury of time and energy to study the papers that I just mentioned and to go to Beijing and Shanghai to talk to our friends and competitors there. And that's why I mentioned the chambers and the professional bodies. They should do it for their members. And most of their members are small to medium-sized companies who don't have the resources. So Hong Kong needs to get organized. It's the government plus the private sector. My experience in the last 6 years is that whenever you go to places like, doesn't have to be far away, Nansha, quite close by, part of Guangdong, part of the Greater Bay Area, have lunch with local government officials, and I hear something I haven't heard before, and I say, hey, I've been here for 60 times, and this is new to me. I don't know that you have this policy or this new project going. And we say, oh, Mr. Leung, we're very transparent and very open. All these are on our website. We didn't know that you didn't know. 我们不知道，你不知道. And so I think this is a major problem. We don't know what they need, and they don't know what we can offer. And so Hong Kong really need to get itself organized to communicate better and to gather information and analyze the information for Hong Kong businesses.
One of the things that really touched me when I went to Zhongshan recently, I went to Zhongshan recently for a Saturday holiday, and then the Dang Wei Shuji got hold of news that I was there, so he came to see me, and Shuji, a very high official. But the two good things would happen. The first thing is that we didn't have to drink. That's number one.
Did you say that or did he say that?
He said it. He said it. There's a real change. That's number one. Number two is, that's joking aside, all right? The other thing was this. He said that, Mr. Leung, please give us some ideas as to how we can improve ourselves, what we can do to actually work with Hong Kong and the rest of the world. Now, that's the attitude that, these officials have in their local government. So I know that John Lee and so on, he does try his best and go and see people, but I think probably not enough. But there are three challenges, I thought, CY, that we are facing right now. One is the challenge of new technologies. The second challenge is the challenge of climate and environmental changes. And the third is really understanding the rest of the world. You are very right to say that we haven't done enough to understand the rest of the world. Because the rest of the world now is very important, because the G77 countries in Africa and Asia and Central America, these brave souls from China, they would actually travel 16, 17 hours to Mexico, basically. Some of our industrials try to do that, but not probably enough. They probably think that they make a lot of money in property businesses. Not so much now, but anyway. But we've had it very easy. In fact, in the last 10 years or so. But there have been people who actually do this. And I know some people sitting here actually do this as well. But those are the three things that really challenge us. I brought this book along just to show you, I have to read this now. This is the thing called deep learning about AI that I really feel that I have to upskill myself, because, what is deep learning, what is AI, what are these large language models, and so on and so forth. People like me are becoming very ignorant on this. The other thing like me is I'm very ignorant about climate change, but that's going to be one of the most important things that's going to happen to us. And I don't know enough about Africa. But the problem is that you go to Africa, you have to take 6 shots, basically. But nonetheless, it might be worth it. Probably, it may well be worth it. I've been to Africa for international meetings. I took 6 shots, I still go. But what will it be that will make it all worthwhile to us? You know, what is the thing that would actually make us feel that, you know, we should, this book is not an easy book. I started to read it, but I feel that I must read it. I must finish it somehow, come hell or high water, basically. But you know, it's just me, basically. What about other people? You are a leader of Hong Kong. You know, what do you have to say to us?
I've always been an optimist, and I have faith in mankind. One of these days, we're going to wake up to these challenges and sort of grab them between our teeth and try to do something about them. But the world is, as you say, facing challenges on many fronts. I haven't read the book. I've not come across that book, so I wouldn't say anything about AI. I try. Yeah, one day I'll try. Climate change. I've seen flooding in the deserts of Djibouti, East Africa. Desert, flooding, extreme weather conditions. And these places do not have drainage systems. And therefore, you have a collection of stagnant water. And what comes next? With global warming and higher air temperature, mosquitoes and other vectors. And so VBDs, vector-borne diseases in these countries, are becoming a problem. Dengue fever. It's been a challenge for Singapore. It's a challenge in many Southeast Asian countries. We had one case last week in Hong Kong. The Minister of Health of Laos said to me that if we're not careful, dengue could become another COVID in terms of its impact. High in the mountains of Timor-Leste, where places were cool, they now have to face a challenge of dengue mosquitoes because of an increase in temperature of 2 to 3 degrees. Apparently, Paris is facing the same problem in the Olympic villages. So these are the issues that we face. But I think we need to tackle these problems head on. Climate change, we should be concerned about. In a city like Hong Kong, through voluntary and proactive efforts on the level of residents of Hong Kong and the levels of households and companies, just by switching off, we could easily save from tomorrow onwards 20% of electricity consumption. Would we do it? I think that's the issue. We shouldn't leave it to the government to legislate against the waste of energy. If everyone takes it upon himself or herself to switch off, turn up the aircon or turn down the aircon, whatever is the right expression, tomorrow we could achieve 20% reduction. So that could be as simple as this.
And indeed, and on this note, I think we'll have to conclude the fireside chat. It's been very, very interesting.
Thank you.
And the message that I think we will all bring back with us today, and the takeaway for that is that we should open our minds. We should leave our comfort zone because there are plenty of opportunities. In fact, if we're willing to deal with it, and we have it all in us. Thank you, CY.
Thank you.
Please. Okay.
Next, we have a few minutes, just a few minutes for our Q&A session. So in the interest of time, some rules, one question max each. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. A microphone will be brought to you. And before you ask your question, please announce your name and the organization that you are from. Okay, so let's start. Who would like to ask the first question? Maybe the gentleman over there.
Mr. Leung, thank you so much for the extremely inspiring talk today. I'm Professor Chai Xiaoqiang, Associate Vice President there from the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen campus. So as you probably know, okay, CUHK Shenzhen is established in mainland China. It has been 10 years old already. And our core mission, our main mission is to inherit the core academic value and academic system and further develop them in a university in mainland China. Of course, we also carry the mission to serve as a bridge of a collaboration between Hong Kong and mainland China in education, in research, and also in industrial application. So in the area of finance, we have developed a number of academic programs, ranging from bachelor degree program to PhD degree program. So as a matter of fact, the very first postgraduate program we developed in our Shenzhen campus is a Master of Science program in financial engineering. We have also helped the city of Shenzhen to build a Shenzhen Financial Institute, SFI. So now in mainland China or in China, there are two SFI, one in Shanghai, Shanghai FFI, Shanghai Financial Institute, and other is in Shenzhen. So, Mr. Leung, my question is, for an educational institution like us, for a university in our position, what can we do, better, and what can we do more to enable our students to capture the opportunities you pointed out today, and also, of course, to contribute to them. So when Hong Kong is further developing as a global financial center, whereas mainland China is also developing very rapidly. So could you share with us some of your key ideas and advice? Thank you.
I may be partial. Please, firstly, congratulations to your university. Great success in 10 years. I may be partial, but you couldn't find, in my view, another global and international financial center for your students to practice and for your graduates to make a good career than Hong Kong. So I would suggest that between your Hong Kong University and the Shenzhen University, I know they are not two different campuses because then I think students should be allowed to come to Hong Kong, study, and meet all these great guys and learn from them a bit more.
Okay, next question.
I'm very honored to be actually the first batch of the FFTC Council. So I have served, and I'm very also, I had gone through journey of, trying to work with our civil servants to try to convince them reform or change was necessary. So, so my question is, now we are in the commercial sector. So we have this always feeling insecure because we have competition. So we always strive to learn and improve ourselves. So continuous professional learning is in our everyday life. I just want to, no doubt the AOs are all very smart people, very clever and intelligent, but we admit that we don't know what we don't know. When I don't know something, my partner's here to, oh, by the way, I'm from PwC. My God. So I would learn, or sometimes I would ask my clients, oh, what does it mean? But I just wonder how the government's continuous learning or update, like this AI, it's not only about the technology bureau. They need to learn about AI. I think across the board, even in the financial services, treasury bureau, etc., education department, etc. So my question is, how can we do about it, or what would be your advice on? Because for us in the commercial sector, we strive very hard to convince the government regulators, etc. Susie, you understand, right? So this is what's happening in the world. This is the trend. If we don't do this, we'll be easily overcome, or we are already overtaken in this particular sector. But this sector, we can strive to get our foot in if we act like this, because we have so many clever people in here, and we are all we all love Hong Kong. We want Hong Kong to strive. And so we have all these springs and ideas, but it's difficult to convince the other side. So first of all, they need to understand, yes, in fact, it's happening in the rest of the world or certain financial services market. And so Hong Kong may have a chance. So I think this is the continuous learning and education would be something. I understand that for the regulators, certain professional association conduct regular, I wouldn't say training, but sharing with the regulators. So I think it's probably okay. But for the bureaus, I mean, do they get this kind of, thinking? Because the bureau sets the strategy. When I talk to the regulator, including IRD, they're the enforcement agent. They enforce the law. They do not set policy. They do not change the law. But they, of course, they can influence the bureau. So it's a long question. Thank you.
I think CY, of course, he was the chief executive. So he'll have to tell his civil servants to get on with it.
I was also convener of the executive council, which advised the chief executive how to deal with civil servants. To be fair to Hong Kong civil servants, you have such civil servants, not all of them, but you have such civil servants in nearly all governments, in my experience. So, two pieces of advice. One, if we see opportunities in Hong Kong or outside of Hong Kong, mainland China included, that do not need government input, you do not need government funding, you do not need a piece of legislation from the government, then do it. Just grab these opportunities and do it. When you don't need them, you don't need them. And secondly, think Hong Kong, not Singapore. Secondly, some civil servants try to lead from behind. And if you come across such civil servants, you, the company, or the sector should try to create enough momentum for them to follow. You can't change the spot on leopard overnight. And what you can do is to create enough momentum in society or in the industry for them to inevitably follow. I think that's a way to go about it. And in one word, whether you take the first approach or the second approach, my key advice is don't wait, because as I said, time is of the essence.
I think that must be absolutely right, because what CY has been saying, I mean, he was a chief executive, he knows this well. Because I think he must have been sometimes quite frustrated when his civil servants don't produce this stuff for him. If I were in his position, I'd feel the same. But the real question is this, is that you must engage them if they don't engage you. You see, what CY and Susie has been doing with this project that they've been doing, you see, they've been working at it like for months, and then they finally made some breakthrough because, they kept at this. And this is what the industry must do. And what the professional bodies must do is that if you have to engage the government and to find ways of engaging them. You see, there are at least 2 political appointees in every bureau. And they have to answer to LegCo. So therefore, if you want to engage them through the political appointees, but also through your LegCo members and so on. And you just cannot wait. You just have to do it.
I know we're over time, but maybe one last question quickly.
KK Chen, Footprint Foundation. A few more bullets is Deloitte alumni and fellow member of HKIOD. Special thanks to Susie for inviting me here. I may have bias, CY, because I'm a big fan of you. We first know each other in the 90s when you were the independent director of Capital. I used to work for the Singapore Temasek Link company for too long. Okay, so I totally agree what you mentioned about lobbying, because we were in a car in Pudong. That was our first encounter with Singapore government need your lobbying to Pudong when you are actually a Hong Kong person. That was echoing to the first question that you guys bring up on lobbying that we need, communication that we need. My question is indeed, what we can do in our generation to help Hong Kong in turning Hong Kong into a real global financial center from the younger generation. To share myself experience. I encourage my daughter to go to Guangzhou to have her bachelor instead of going to overseas. Why I say that is because Hong Kong people, I'm a retired person, I'm 61, okay? I don't know how to help Hong Kong by doing much more without our generation. So please share with us, what can we do for our next generation? That is my question, to turn Hong Kong into a better global financial center in a more forwarding like comment. I'm more than willing to.
It's going to sound too simplistic. Obviously, we could spend the whole day talking about the subject of the next generation. But I think the new generation of Hong Kong people should be encouraged to go to the mainland more. I think you made the right move of asking or sending your daughter to Guangzhou. During the riots and before the riots, most of the Hong Kong university students, I'm not talking about one university, I'm talking about all universities in Hong Kong, did not want to go to the mainland for different reasons. So I think we now have the political environment and they should be encouraged to go to the mainland. I'm very pleased to see that the Shenzhen restaurants and these nice shopping centers and entertainment places are doing their part in enticing the new generation to go there, which is a great thing. So it's an important move. Anyway, could I take this opportunity? I know that was the last question because something came up to my mind, and this is about the sort of big picture of where Hong Kong is and how the country sees Hong Kong in its overall development and so on, which I think is probably a bigger and more sort of overriding umbrella kind of question for our subject today. Because I have heard more than once people in the financial services sector saying to me and to others in Hong Kong that Hong Kong is no longer the key international financial center in the country, and the country is now placing more hope on other cities on the mainland and so on and so forth. I can tell you that in my experience, it's not true. The country places a great deal of importance on Hong Kong, particularly Hong Kong's financial services sector. So it is really up to us to make the best use of the opportunities that we've been given and the advantages that we have in our hands. And I always recommend to friends in Hong Kong to read a speech by none other than President Xi himself on the 12th of November, 2018. You find Tony's name in that speech. SFC days. That occasion was in celebration of the 40 years of opening up and reform of the country. And the country invited about 200 representatives from Hong Kong and Macau to be there, and the President Xi made a great speech. He summed up the contributions of Hong Kong and Macau in 6 areas in those 40 years. And this is I'm coming to the key point now. And then they expressed 4 new hopes as to how Hong Kong and Macau could continue to develop, to assist the country in its further development. And all these 4 hopes started with the words 更加积极主动, meaning we need to be more proactive, even more proactive, 更加积极主动. And then here are the 4 new hopes. 全面助力国家, or 助力国家全面开放, to assist the country in its complete opening up. And China is not going back on the opening up. And presidency wants Hong Kong, Macau to assist the country in its complete opening up. And the second one is to integrate with the overall development of the country. 更加积极主动融入国家发展大局. The third one is 更加积极主动参与国家治理实践, to participate in the governance of the country. A lot of people in Hong Kong somehow have this feeling that you've been creating enough troubles for Beijing, and if Hong Kong could just look after itself without bothering Beijing, then that's great. No, presidency actually expects Hong Kong and Macau to participate in the 治理实践, the practice of governance in the country. And these are on the national levels. These 3 hopes are on the national level. And the last one is on the international level. 国际人文交流, international humanity interflows. So the country has great hope in Hong Kong. And I think we need to deliver, and I think we have the capabilities to deliver. So I highly recommend this speech by President Xi. Again, it's the 12th of November, 2018. Thank you.
I'm very, very glad. This is as close to the horse's mouth as you can get with the message. And since 2018, that's been carried through, in fact, in all spheres, particularly in the legal sphere, in the financial sphere, and international law. You know, I just came back from Beijing last week. I mean, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs celebrated the 75th year of the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. So 177 countries came, and Hong Kong, we were invited. The AIL was invited. So Teresa gave a welcoming speech. I was one of the moderators for the panel. And so very much so that we are regarded as an important component of the governance and the advancement of the country. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
We are going to have a slight change of schedule. We're going to have the closing remarks first and then a photo session. So thank you very much, both Mr. Leung and Dr. Neoh. Thank you. And to deliver the closing remarks, we wouldn't have been here today without the wonderful support of KPMG. So I'm going to have John to deliver the closing remarks before the photo.
And I will keep this very brief because I know I'm standing between you and some more wonderful food outside. But hi, I'm John Timpany. I'm the head of tax for KPMG in Hong Kong. Perhaps more importantly, I'm also the treasurer of APSA. First, I'd just like to thank our distinguished speakers today, Mr. Leung and Dr. Neoh. Thank you for your candid and challenging remarks. If I was going to take one word away from today, it's perhaps let's shake some complacency around Hong Kong and its place in the world, and let's challenge ourselves to be a bit more proactive. I'd also like to thank the sponsors. You don't get wonderful food without the good sponsors. So thank you to the China Construction Bank Asia for your wonderful contribution, and also the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen. Thank you for supporting this event. It's much appreciated. As the treasurer, I do keep an eye on the dollars. Perhaps I'd also like to thank the audience for your participation today. It's great to have some very well thought through and serious questions. So thank you for your participation. And finally, on behalf of KPMG, we're proud to support events like this and the work that APSA is doing. And I think I would agree, and KPMG would agree, when we actually think about it, that the future of Hong Kong, while there is always uncertainty, it is perhaps, there is a very bright future for Hong Kong as a global financial centre. And we just have to perhaps be a bit more positive and proactive out there. So with that, enough from me. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
And thank you. Today's event is ended. May I ask speakers to remain on stage and have photos with the sponsors, please?